LoveLore Library. Chapter 901. There was also a faint killing intent. Unfortunately, her mother couldn't see it. She was immersed in his gentleness and care all day long. How could she see it? In fact, this man and she were not of the same mind at all. She didn't know when they were not of the same mind, or had never been of the same mind. She didn't care. She only knew that now that she had entered the palace and become the emperor's woman, her eyes should revolve around the emperor. After all, he was her future support. She tried to show a tactful, generous and understanding appearance, because she wanted to be the empress, the motherly model of the world. Before Shen Yueji appeared, she had never taken Pang Yuan seriously. In the eyes of outsiders, Pang Yuan's family had a strong background, and her father was the imperial tutor of the country. In addition, the Empress Dowager treated her as her own daughter, and so did the emperor. No matter what she did, the Empress Dowager and the emperor would turn a blind eye and not ask about it. But only she knew that when others envied Pang Yuan and wanted to be like her, only he didn't take her seriously. Only she secretly laughed at Pang Yuan, who had such a good identity and background. She didn't know how to make use of it, but always courted death. First, domain name. Please remember, as long as she wanted, she could pull her down from the high position in a short period of time. While she was busy punishing the beauties in the harem, she secretly saved them and won their hearts. She thought that everything was within her expectations. She thought that Pang Yuan would court death sooner or later, but who would have thought that this Shen Yueji would have popped out from somewhere? The emperor was good to her, doted on her, and indulged her. Pang Yuan couldn't compare. Even if there were 10, 100, 1,000, or even 10,000 Pang Yuans, they couldn't compare to Shen Yueji. At that moment she really realized that something was wrong, but she didn't panic completely. Shen Yueji's appearance was a challenge to her. After all, she didn't even care about Pang Yuan, let alone Shen Yueji. New August Chinese Network. Calm. She was good at observing people's minds. No matter what this woman looked like, no matter what she thought. But as long as she saw it, she would know, what was this woman thinking? But Shen Yueji, she found that she couldn't see through her. This woman was really unfathomable. She had tried to put her mind on her, but this woman gave her the feeling of a gust of wind, an invisible wind blowing in front of her. She could only feel her existence, but couldn't touch her. She could only use Pang Yuan, that idiot, to test her. She wanted to see how she would react when faced with Pang Yuan's provocation and pressure. He was fearless even when facing Pang Yuan. One must know that in the imperial harem, which woman in the imperial harem wasn't afraid of Pang Yuan? Afraid of Pang Yuan. Pang Yuan's existence in the harem was like a devil, and the Empress Dowager and the emperor were the ones who took the side of the tyrant. No one dared to offend her. It was because offending her would only result in death. There was no way out. Even though she looked down on Pang Yuan and looked down on her, she was at least afraid of her. At least she knew that the backing of her mother's family made it impossible for her to face her directly. Because in this way, no matter whether she was right or wrong, Pang Yuan would always be wrong and never right. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about super cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find confidence. The most disgusting thing in her life was to hear from other people about which woman the emperor doted on. Now, she heard from Sheng Wanmei that the emperor had become one with her. Even if they were to become one, it was the emperor who had become one with her, not with that slut. Sheng Wanmei knew that if she said anything about how much Shen Yueji was doted on by the emperor in front of her, she would turn hostile. However, she was not afraid at all. On the contrary, she deliberately provoked her. Sister, I know that in this imperial harem, no one likes the emperor as much as you do. Even I am ashamed of my inferiority. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu literature. Chapter 903. That's why I gave up a long time ago. The only thing I feel sorry for is that Shin Yueji stole your sweetheart. You should know that the emperor should have belonged to you. If it weren't for Shin Yueji, the emperor would have conferred you the title of empress long ago. Shangguan, what's the point of saying this now? This consort didn't come here to listen to your flattering words. I asked you to come up with a plan. Aren't you always full of ideas and cunning? Then tell me. How can we get rid of Shin Yueji? Or... She narrowed her eyes dangerously. Are you afraid? Is it because you suffered at Shin Yueji's hands that you're afraid? Shangguan gestured for the servants in the bedroom to leave. In the blink of an eye, only she and Pang Yuan were left. Imperial Consort Pang, I've just realized that when facing Shin Yueji, if I want to do something, I have to do it. If I don't, I have to do nothing. What do you mean? His Majesty dotes on her so much that he didn't even care about my Shangguan family's power. For that woman, he executed me. Presumably, with your Pang family's power, the Majesty did the same for that woman. Nonsense. Sister, be realistic. Haven't you seen what I've been through? Even if you don't want to admit it, the Emperor only has Shin Yueji in his heart. This is a fact. For Shin Yueji, he didn't even fear our family's power. Tell me, how can we deal with him? Hearing this, Pang Yuan became even angrier. Her beautiful face became distorted. What should we do? Don't tell me you really want me to hand over the Emperor to that bitch. Pang Yuan clenched her fists under her long sleeves. She couldn't do it. She couldn't do it at all. She couldn't do it. The Emperor, whom she had loved for so many years, was taken away by another woman. She couldn't do it. The Emperor, who was supposed to be with her for the rest of his life, had waited for him for so many years without complaint or regret, but he had fallen in love with another woman and refused to look at her. Finally, she could not hold it in any longer. She quickly walked forward and picked Shangguan up from the bed. Shangguan back was still injured. As Pang Yuan lifted her up without a care, she almost died from the pain on the spot. Perhaps it was because her originally pale face became even paler after her movement, as if she was really going to die. For the time being, Pang Yuan didn't want her to die. She still had a use for her, so she let go. Shangguan fell onto the bed, her wound touching the edge of the bed. After enduring for so long, she couldn't hold it in any longer. She sucked in a breath of cold air and said, "Sister Imperial Concubine, I know you're unhappy with me, but I'm injured now. If you do this, you'll kill me." "Humph, who asked you to go to Xingyang Palace for no reason?" At the mention of this, Pang Yuan suddenly narrowed her eyes. "By the way, why did you suddenly go to Xingyang Palace when you were fine?" "Shangguan, or could it be that you're busy with me for something?" Shangguan dark eyes flickered. She suddenly smiled. "Sister, what are you talking about? Why would I hide anything from you? It's just that I've never had a direct confrontation with Shin Yueji. I can only understand her from sister's mouth. I don't really understand her. Now that sister and I are working together, we must have more contact with her. Otherwise, if we don't understand her, how can we control everything in our hands?" Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, The Prince Regent, Messing with Claw Bookhouse, for free. Chapter 904. Pang Yuan's expression softened a little, probably because she felt that what she said made sense. "I've already told you that that slut is harder to provoke than any of the women this consort has encountered before. You went to look for her without any sense of propriety. Isn't that clearly courting death? You really can't blame anyone for falling into such a state today. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for acting recklessly. After saying that, Peng Yuan looked at her with disappointment in her eyes. Sure enough, she still had too much hope for this woman. She really thought that Shangguan Mei was a shrewd person. With her help, she could easily get rid of Shen Yueji. In this way, there would be someone to take the blame for her. Why not? When she said that she wanted to cooperate with him, he had already wanted to agree. The fastest network update mobile/m. But now, after seeing the suffering she had suffered at Shen Yueji's hands, Peng Yuan finally got over it. She really had high hopes for this woman. Don't be angry, Imperial Concubine Jijia. I do have a way to get rid of Shen Yueji and make it impossible for her to make a comeback in this lifetime. Even the Emperor will leave her forever. I just don't know if you dare to do it. To Peng Yuan, these words were undoubtedly good news. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Shangguan Mei expectantly. Do you really have such a good idea? Since you have it, why didn't you say it earlier? Do you have to drag it out until now? Shangguan Mei took a deep breath with difficulty. Sister, you may not know this, but I have no enmity with Shen Yueji. Unless it's the last resort, I will never put her to death. Moreover, this matter is very risky, and it concerns the Empress Dowager. In the eyes of Sister, Imperial Concubine, Empress Dowager has always been an elder, and the Empress Dowager also treats Sister as her own daughter. Don't mention that old thing to me. At the mention of Cian, Peng Yuan's anger flared up. She did treat Cian as her elder and her biological mother, but how did she treat herself? At the mention of her, she gritted her teeth in hatred and quickly interrupted Shangguan Mei's words. What you said just now was about the Empress Dowager. Tell me about it. Shangguan Mei hesitated for a moment. Sister, this is really risky. Once people find out, I'm afraid we won't be able to keep our lives. Thinking that she had the immortal gold medallion, Peng Yuan suddenly smiled. What are you afraid of? I naturally have a way out. As for whether Shangguan Mei lived or died, that was her own business. Right now, she just wanted to drag Shen Yueji down from the stage as soon as possible. As long as she could die, she was willing to do anything. Even if it was to take a risk and have a slim chance of survival, as long as she could drag Shen Yueji down with her, she would not hesitate at all. Chapter 905. Sister, come to me. Peng Yuan glanced at her and bent down in front of her. Sister, let's do this. Hearing Shangguan Mei whisper these words into her ear, Peng Yuan was shocked and in disbelief at the beginning, but when she saw Shangguan Mei smile, this woman seemed to be born with a kind of magic. Not to mention men, even she, as a woman, was almost dazzled by her captivating smile. But, was it really okay to do this? Although the Empress Dowager had always been partial to Shen Yueji, the outsider, in some of her actions and practices, at least the Empress Dowager truly loved her. Although her love for her had been transferred to Shen Yueji after Shen Yueji appeared, she was still someone who had loved her for so many years. In her heart, she truly regarded her as an elder. Sister, I'm just asking for your opinion on this method. As for whether you're willing to use this opportunity to get rid of Shen Yueji, it's still up to you. If you're not willing, Peng Yuan suddenly shouted angrily. Shangguan Mei was so frightened that her body stiffened. She hurriedly shut her mouth and did not dare to lift her head to look at her. Elder sister, I am doing this for your sake. I know that in this world, no one is more important than the Emperor in elder sister's heart. As long as Shen Yueji is not eliminated, the Emperor's thoughts will never fall on you. Elder sister, you know that as long as Shen Yueji is in the back palace, the Emperor's thoughts will always fall on her. Through today's contest, younger sister has already realized how important Shen Yueji is to His Majesty. For her, His Majesty is not even afraid of my Shangguan family's power. My life and death are all in Shen Yueji's hands. Shangguan Mei's words were like a thorn in Pang Yuan's heart. Even if she did not want to admit it, she had to learn to accept reality. She suddenly closed her eyes, turned around and smashed the things on the coffee table. The sound of the smashing made Yu, who was outside, afraid and worried. This woman was crazy and did not care about anything. Would she do anything to the concubine? She was so worried that she wanted to rush in. But before she could rush in, her arm was grabbed by Xiao, from behind. What are you worried about? Your Nyang Nyang is injured to that extent and is already half dead. My family's Guifei Nyang Nyang is too lazy to hurt her own hand. Looking at this maidservant's tone, she was clearly the same as her master. Like master, like lowly servant. Yu flung her hand away angrily. Don't touch me. Xiao snorted indifferently, you think I'm too lazy to touch you? Let me tell you, according to my empress's temper, if you rush in now, won't you just anger her even more? If she's angry, she'll kill you. I'm just pulling you back out of goodwill and not sending you to your death. Her ladyship is inside. Is your life more important, or your ladyship's? Moreover, I've already told you, with that half-dead state of yours, my master can't be bothered to touch her. Yu was so angry that her face turned pale. She could not find the right words to refute Xiao's arrogant expression. She could only glare at Xiao fiercely and pay attention to the reaction in the palace. Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, the Prince Regent, Provoking the Body Claw Bookhouse, for free. Chapter 906. Not long after, she saw Pang Yuan coming out of the room with a smile on her face. She didn't have time to bow and rushed in. Seeing that Shangguan Mei's face was much paler than before, Yu felt sorry for her and quickly helped her to lie down. Your Highness, are you all right? I was so worried. Did Imperial Consort Pang do anything to you? She picked me up from the bed just now and almost killed me. Is she gone now? Yes, she's gone. Yu quickly nodded, don't worry, Your Highness. That vicious woman has left. Your Highness, what did you say to Imperial Consort Pang? Just now, this servant heard some movements inside and thought that Imperial Consort Pang was bullying you again. I wanted to rush in, but her servant girl held my hand and didn't let this servant enter. Shangguan Mei waved her hand at her, fortunately, you didn't come in. Otherwise, according to Pang Yuan's character, you would be in serious trouble. I didn't say anything. In short, Pang Yuan's attention should not be on me during this period. You and I should rest in Charming Palace and watch the tigers fight. Yu saw that Her Highness's face had regained its victorious expression and couldn't help but feel happy. Yes, Your Highness. I will listen to you. 2 days later. 2 days passed peacefully. It was said that today was the busiest annual lantern festival in the capital. Shen Yueji had just learned that the Empress Dowager would also go to see the lanterns. Shen Yueji was shocked and she received the news from Compassionate Palace that she was invited to go with them. Because before that, she knew that other than Shangguan Mei, who had just been flogged, Pang Yuan was also going to the Lantern Festival with the Empress Dowager. But the Empress Dowager didn't invite her. Because of the fox fur sable incident, even if the rumor about this incident was destroyed because of Consort Mei, who had been flogged 50 times by the Emperor. There was also the Empress Dowager's silent response to prove her innocence. If the Empress Dowager had really hit her one day, she wouldn't have asked Pang Yuan to come along at the Lantern Festival, leaving Pang Yuan hanging. Her attitude was clearly to prove to outsiders that the rumors in the harem these past 2 days were false. However, they didn't dare to talk about Pang Yuan. If she found out about it, they wouldn't be able to keep their lives. even their families would suffer. So, the most angry one was Pang Yuan of the Puryong Palace. She had originally planned to bury the hatchet with the Empress Dowager. This time, she would apologize to the Empress Dowager first. After all, she was indeed in the wrong in that matter. It was also her who had angered the Empress Dowager. However, in the end, the bad reputation that had fallen on Shin Yueji's head had actually fallen on her head in less than 2 days. How could she not be angry? Especially when she thought of those bitches who were hiding in her bedroom and secretly mocking her, she felt even angrier. Right now, they were probably overjoyed. Your Highness, don't be angry. Xiaoer was a little scared as she poured a glass of water and handed it to her. Pang Yuan was so angry that she gnashed her teeth. Not angry. How could she not be angry? She was obviously angry to death. At first, she was a little hesitant. She thought that this old thing had loved and taken care of her for so many years. In the end, it turned out that she was treated like this. She really thought that she could protect her to the end. She didn't know if her father would be angry after knowing about this. Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, The Regent, Provoking the Body Claw Bookhouse, for free. Chapter 907. She hadn't received a letter from her father for 2 days. She hadn't even seen her father enter the Puryong Palace. She didn't get angry at Xiaoer this time, which was really out of Xiaoer's expectation. Old thing, you asked for it. Since that's the case, don't blame me for not considering the old relationship. Originally, Shin Yueji was supposed to go with Mo Wushang. But because of Empress Dowager, she knew that the man was unhappy. She comforted him softly, Empress Dowager is my mother-in-law in the future. I haven't married you yet. Do you want me to disobey your mother? Then there was his mother. She clearly knew that he was able to put aside all his official duties today for her, but in the end, she had forcibly separated the two of them. The man narrowed his eyes dangerously and didn't say anything. His cold face revealed his strong dissatisfaction. Shin Yueji leaned over and kissed his handsome face. Only then did she see that the man's expression eased a little. Well, I'll go to Xi'an Palace first. It's not like I can't meet her at the Lantern Festival. Miss Shen, Imperial Concubine Pang will also go to this Lantern Festival. Some concubines who are favored by Empress Dowager will also go to this Lantern Festival. Imperial Concubine Pang has endless means. Miss Shen doesn't have the protection of His Majesty. You should be more careful. Eunuch Lu reminded her carefully. Shin Yueji smiled slightly. Thank you, Eunuch Lu. I know. Xi'an Palace, this woman from Feng country is too arrogant. Empress Dowager has been waiting for nearly an hour. Yes, she doesn't know who Empress Dowager is. What's her status? How can she make Empress Dowager wait for so long? Outside of Xi'an's palace, there were already many concubines standing guard. The sun was blazing. Today's sun was much hotter than usual, and it was very glaring. They had been standing outside for nearly an hour. Their legs were already numb. When did they stand for so long? Almost all the concubines who went to the Lantern Festival had arrived. Only Shin Yueji was missing. Isn't it because she is favored now? Not to mention an hour, even if it's 2 hours, Empress Dowager doesn't say anything, we have to wait obediently. In the crowd, some people began to mock her. After her sarcasm, the rest of the people were even more indignant. New by Chinese website. Speaking of being arrogant, even Imperial Consort Pang's paternal family, who had such a powerful backing, did not see her act so presumptuously. Knowing that the Empress Dowager was angry with her, she still ran in to please the Empress Dowager. Because the status of the imperial concubine was there, and they were just unfavored concubines in the harem. Usually, they had to curry favor with the Empress Dowager, so they had a good relationship with her. Maybe the Empress Dowager also felt that she owed them. They were sent to the palace at such a young age. Some of them had not even seen the emperor. Some of them were lucky enough to see the emperor, but they could only look at him from a distance, because the emperor's eyes did not fall on them at all. Perhaps the Empress Dowager also felt that they were pitiful. They were in the prime of their youth, but they had to spend it in the harem. Therefore, they would take special care of them. Whenever there was something good in the palace, they would be rewarded to them. I really don't know what's so good about this woman from the Feng nation. Not to mention that she charmed His Majesty. Even Imperial Concubine Pang suffered a loss at her hands, and there's also Imperial Concubine Mei. First publication, domain name. Please remember, if you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow UUL Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 908. That's right, it's just a pity for Imperial Concubine Mei. She's such a kind and magnanimous person, but because she stirred up trouble in the Emperor's ears, she was beaten. They didn't care what happened to Pang Yuan. Even if Pang Yuan died, they might applaud her behind her back. Among the concubines present, who hadn't suffered in Pang Yuan's hands. But Shengguan Mei was different. Since they entered the palace, Shengguan Mei had taken good care of them. After hearing that Shengguan Mei was punished by the emperor because of Shen Yueji, they hated Shen Yueji even more out of jealousy, heartache, or other reasons. Sisters, when the woman from the Feng kingdom comes, should we? Before the older concubine could finish her words, the woman behind her said hesitantly, Sister Hui Fei, I don't think that's a good idea. Yes, Sister Hui Fei. Everyone knows that Sister Concubine Mei was punished by the emperor because she offended Shen Yueji. If we treat Shen Yueji at this time, what are you afraid of? I just want you to ignore her. She's alone and helpless in the harem. How can she be so arrogant? Besides, the emperor is not by her side. She can't complain to the emperor, can she? Sisters, how can the woman from the Feng kingdom be inferior to the woman from the North Underworld? You should know how Sister Concubine Mei was punished. Wasn't it because of Shen Yueji? What do you have to worry about? We're just ignoring her. There are so many faces here. Even if she really goes to complain to the emperor, how many of them do you think she can recognize? I'm afraid that the emperor will think that she's unreasonable. She could be willful and arrogant if she was pampered for a while. But if she did it too many times, she believed that even the emperor would get impatient with her. Perhaps it was because what she said made sense that the concubines present had already begun to agree with her. Sister Hui Fei is really knowledgeable. Yes, we'll listen to her. When the woman from the Feng kingdom comes, we'll unite and ignore her. Humph, let's see how arrogant she can be. In the carriage. Shen Yueji sneezed inexplicably. When Shuangshi heard this, he quickly took the cloak and wanted to put it on her. Shen Yueji's face darkened. She reached out to stop her. Double happiness, it's a scorching sun. Everyone is about to be burnt to death by the sun. You still want to put clothes on me? Do you want me to die of heat? Double happiness was depressed. But miss, you just sneezed. You must have caught a cold. Shen Yueji was speechless. What kind of logic was that? Sighing, Shen Yueji shook her head and said, I heard that in addition to Pang Yuan, there are many other concubines in the harem who will be attending the Lantern Festival. Calm. Calm, miss, are you worried? I'm not worried, but they will definitely team up to deal with me together. Pang Yuan and Shengguan Mei's affair has just been exposed. Even if they have that idea, they don't have the guts. Young master is on your side. First, domain name. Please remember, there are so many people, but I don't know any of them. There's only the Empress Dowager. At that time, Peng Yuan will definitely pester the Empress Dowager to stop her from talking to me. And the other women in the harem will probably unite to talk about their own business in order to give me the cold shoulder. They won't care about me at all. They want to embarrass me. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute favorite concubine, Prince Regent, get into trouble, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a bosom friend. If you think my words are not trustworthy, you might as well ask the Empress Dowager yourself. He told them to ask him personally, but who would dare to ask him personally? The Empress Dowager hated the women who caused trouble in the harem the most. The reason why the Empress Dowager liked them was because they were usually obedient. That was why the Empress Dowager could, if they went to ask the Empress Dowager, wouldn't that be indirectly admitting to the Empress Dowager that they were the same as those women in the inner palace who stirred up trouble? They were not Peng Yuan. With the support of her maiden family, no matter what Peng Yuan did, the Empress Dowager would connive and protect her, and even the Emperor would not say anything. No matter how much they disliked Shin Yueji, her words still made them speechless, because she was right. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute pet concubine, Regent, get into trouble, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find confidence. Chapter 9-10. If one of them complained to the Empress Dowager, then from now on, the Empress Dowager would no longer care about them. Miss Shen, these are just words between sisters. Why do you have to say it so decisively? Don't you want to leave a way out for us sisters? Concubine Hui stood up and smiled. We are all the Emperor's women. In the future, we must coexist peacefully. Don't let a small matter affect the relationship between sisters. Shuangxi snorted coldly. To think that some people still have the face to say bad things about my Mississippi. In my opinion, some people are really thick-skinned. When did my miss say that she was sisters with you? And the Emperor's woman? From the beginning to the end, the Emperor only touched my Mississippi. As for you, you are not qualified. You lowly servant. This time, the hot-tempered women who were surrounded at the back and didn't like Shin Yueji were completely enraged. The fact that the Emperor didn't favor them was a pain in their hearts. They had been in the palace for many years. Which one of them wasn't beautiful enough to cause the moon to blush? But the Emperor didn't like them. What could they do? The other imperial concubines tried their best to please the Emperor in order to gain his favor. As for them, they didn't even have the chance to try their best to please the Emperor. When they learned that the Emperor brought back a devastatingly beautiful woman from Feng country and that the Emperor doted on this woman that night, they were extremely shocked. At that time, the shock far exceeded their anger, jealousy, and envy. This was because even imperial consort Pang, who had such a powerful family backing her up, did not receive a second glance from the Emperor. These past few years, the Emperor had been alone, yet he had favored a woman from a foreign country. How could they not be jealous? Envious? If the Emperor didn't protect her so obviously, and with imperial concubine Pang and concubine Mei as an example, how could they allow Shin Yueji to be so arrogant in the inner palace? They would have come looking for trouble with her one by one. They didn't expect that it was just Shin Yueji who was arrogant and didn't put them in her eyes. Now, even the lowly servant beside Shin Yueji was so arrogant and didn't put them in her eyes. Shuangxi. Yes, this lowly servant's name was Double Happiness. One of the imperial concubines, who had been suppressing her anger for a long time, stepped forward and raised her hand to slap her. Damn slut. Who do you think you are? Master is arrogant, but what qualifications do you have to be arrogant? You're just a lowly servant, yet you don't even dare to put us in your eyes. I think you're tired of living. But before her slap could land on Double Happiness's face. Huaxin Originals, domain names, please remember, but Shuangxi was one step ahead of her, his palm landed on her face. The woman was stunned by the slap. She even forgot to cover her face. She just stared at Shuangxi. Caught off guard, she was slapped hard on the ground. The skin on her palm was scratched by the sharp stone, and the pain caused a lot of tears to accumulate in her eyes. You bitch, how dare you hit me? Her face was filled with disbelief. The first to react were the concubines behind her who had a good relationship with her. Seeing this, they hurriedly helped her up from the ground. Qing Jiaoyi, are you okay? Okay. How could she be okay? The network updates the fastest. On the computer, if you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute favorite concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 9-11. In front of so many people, she was hit by a lowly servant. If Shin Yueji hit her, she could accept it, but the one who hit her was a lowly servant by Shin Yueji's side. How much did Shin Yueji look down on her? She didn't even need to do it herself, it was all because of a lowly servant. Lu Qing was so angry that her chest was heaving up and down. In her chest, there was a belly full of anger, but she had no way to vent it. She could only stare at Shin Yueji fiercely. I didn't expect that. Originally, we thought you were just spoiled. Now I know, Shin Yueji, you are simply lawless. What did I do wrong? How dare you allow a servant by my side to humiliate me like this? If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. This is an old saying that has been passed down for so many years. It's not just a saying. Qing Jiaoyi, don't try to provoke me. We can live in harmony in this harem. She paused for a moment and suddenly smiled. As for what you said, the Emperor's favor is just a flash in the pan. Maybe you think so, and I also think so. But, at least, the Emperor loves me now, isn't it? Since the Emperor loves me and protects me now, shouldn't I make good use of this power and opportunity? Otherwise, if there comes a day in the future when I am no longer favored as you say, wouldn't I not even have the right to vent and execute this? Miss Shen, it's your ability to win the Emperor's favor. However, you are too arrogant because of the Emperor's love for you. You bully the concubines and humiliate them. Aren't you afraid that one day, if you really lose the Emperor's love, no one in the harem will be able to protect you and indulge you? You have also offended so many concubines. You don't leave any way out for yourself. In the harem, how can there be a true relationship between sisters? Even biological sisters can turn against each other for a man, for their own interests, let alone. Shin Yueji smiled, not to mention, in this harem, everyone has their own needs. She stretched lazily in the imperial chariot. What did I say again? We are in harmony, I won't take the initiative to find trouble with you, and you guys should stop spreading rumors and ruining my reputation, otherwise. It wasn't easy for me to obtain the Emperor's favor. If I don't make good use of it, wouldn't I be letting down the Emperor's love and protection? Calm Shin Yueji. Her current posture could no longer be described as merely overbearing. Zhao Yi was so angry that her face twisted, and she was about to explode. A displeased voice came from behind. What are you arguing about? Nanny Zhu's displeased voice came from behind. In the harem, Nanny Zhu had been with the Empress Dowager for the longest time. Although she was a servant, except for those concubines above the second rank, these women all had to respectfully call her Nanny Zhu when they saw her. Her words were equivalent to the presence of the Empress Dowager. Offending her was also offending the Empress Dowager. Who would dare to disrespect her? Thus, when her displeased words fell, Qing Zhou, who was originally baring her fangs and brandishing her claws in preparation to cause trouble for Shen Yueji, immediately became extremely obedient. She looked back at Nanny Zhu with a wronged expression. Seeing the slap mark on her face, it was swollen, and a small part of it was soaked with blood. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, WeChat, chat about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 9:12. After all, Nanny Zhu was an experienced person, so she quickly guessed what had happened. She looked at Shen Yueji, who hadn't gotten out of the carriage and was sitting high above. If it was someone else, even if it was Sheng Wanmei or Pang Yuan, she would feel unhappy and dissatisfied in her heart. But why didn't she feel this way when it was Shen Yueji? Nanny Zhu found that she was really satisfied with Shen Yueji from the bottom of her heart. She was not pretentious at all. She did whatever she wanted. Since others said that she was arrogant because of the emperor's favor and that she was lawless, she completely released this arrogance and the emperor's tolerance and indulgence. Such a woman was indeed worthy of being favored by the emperor. There was a certain reason why the emperor liked her. Nanny Zhu, after receiving the Empress Dowager's invitation for today's Lantern Festival, my sisters and I came early because we were afraid that the Empress Dowager would wait for a long time. But when we arrived, Shen Yueji made us wait for nearly 2 hours. We're facing the sun here, and the makeup on our faces is about to be ruined. First, domain name, please remember it should be known that the Emperor was also present at the Lantern Festival today. All the women who attended the Lantern Festival had been carefully sizing them up. Even their clothes were dressed in a variety of styles. They hoped that those who had never seen the Emperor before, or even met him once or twice, would be valued by the Emperor this time. After all, they were all women that the Empress Dowager had personally taken a liking to. But because of Shen Yueji, that bitch. Lu Qing covered her face. The marks on her face wouldn't disappear in a short time. Among the women present, which one of them wasn't an outstanding beauty and was as beautiful as a flower? She wasn't conspicuous among them, and this time, her face was swollen. The emperor definitely wouldn't pay attention to her. New August Chinese Network. Calm. Nanny Zhu glanced at her. Her voice was indiscernible. Qing Zhou, the Empress Dowager has just finished preparing. Miss Shen is right. Today's weather is quite hot. The Empress Dowager asked you to prepare yourselves first before coming. It's not good to be exposed to the scorching sun. She had been waiting outside for a while. It could be said that she had been waiting outside even before Shen Yueji arrived. Her purpose was to see with her own eyes how this woman would play tricks here and how she would discuss giving Shen Yueji the cold shoulder. It would be fine if they really gave Shen Yueji the cold shoulder, but some of them just didn't know what was good for them. Suffering at the hands of Shen Yueji was also within her expectations. As expected, after Nanny Zhu finished speaking, Lu Qing was instantly speechless. Hui Fei stepped forward. When Nanny Zhu saw her, she saluted and said, "Your Highness." Nanny Zhu, you're the favorite of the Empress Dowager. We all respect you. It's just a small quarrel between sisters. It's just that Miss Shen indulges her servants to bully Sister Qing. It's really too much. Moreover, Qing Zhou didn't do anything wrong. This Lantern Festival is a rare opportunity for all the sisters. She didn't finish her words, but the meaning was very clear. Nanny Zhu was a smart person, so she quickly guessed what she wanted to express. Nanny Zhu, you can't blame me. It's obvious that someone rushed up and wanted to hit me. I grew up with Miss Shen. In Miss Shen's eyes, I'm just like the Empress Dowager and you, Nanny Zhu. The Empress Dowager treats Nanny Zhu like a sister. How could she just watch you get beaten and not fight back? Double Happiness's words were reasonable. In addition, she used Nanny Zhu as a shield. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 9:13. Nanny Zhu laughed in her heart. This girl had taken advantage of her first. And she was really quick-witted. Just because of her words, Hui Fei and Qing Zhaoyi couldn't pursue the matter even if they wanted to. Because she liked Shen Yueji, Nanny Zhu also liked Shuangxi, who was loyal to her. The Empress Dowager was right about one thing. Seeing them, Nanny Zhu saw the shadow of their youth. Qing Zhaoyi. She turned around. Lu Qing had a bad feeling. She saw Nanny Zhu's eyes fall on her. Her body trembled, but she still said respectfully, Nanny Zhu, since there is a wound on your face, go back and apply some ointment first, in case there is a scar. It's not good. Nanny Zhu. Lu Qing looked up at her in disbelief. She didn't expect that Nanny Zhu would protect Shen Yueji to this extent. Even when she was beaten, Nanny Zhu turned a blind eye, and could she drive her away? This was a rare opportunity for her. Whether she could see the Emperor and make the Emperor treat her differently, it all depended on today. Lu Qing had been in the palace for some years. Her life in the harem was not easy. Every day, she had delicious food, but what could she do? She didn't even have a man to rely on. In addition, the Emperor was extraordinarily handsome, so when he spoiled women, he was even more lawless. She dreamed that one day she could get the Emperor's favor. If she could get the Emperor's favor, she could be better than Shen Yueji. Shen Yueji was nothing. At that time, she could even look down on Pang Yuan and Sheng Wanmei. Moreover, she could become the Empress, and all the concubines in the harem would be respectful to her. For today's Lantern Festival, she didn't know how much effort she had spent on makeup and clothing. She only hoped that after so many years of not seeing the Emperor, she would be able to gain the Emperor's favor. This way, the Emperor would take a liking to her, remember her in his heart, and be favored in the future. But she didn't expect that Nanny Zhu would drive her away. She said that it was because she had a wound on her face, and she was afraid that she would leave a scar. But in reality, the bias in her heart was clearly towards Shen Yueji. Because she had offended Shen Yueji, she had chased her away. This hard-won opportunity was going to be ruined because of Nanny Zhu's words. There was hatred in Lu Qing's heart, but she didn't dare to show it. In a short period of time, shock and regret filled her heart. She shook her head and tears welled up in her eyes. She didn't care that there were other people present. She threw herself at Nanny Zhu's feet and cried bitterly. Nanny Zhu, please, Nanny Zhu, don't drive me away. I'm begging you. The Lantern Festival is mysterious. There are many noble young ladies who go out with a veil. If Nanny Zhu thinks my appearance is ugly, can you let me go out with a veil? Nanny Zhu. There was no need for her to point it out. Everyone present knew that the number of people invited by the Empress Dowager during this Lantern Festival was very small. Moreover, there weren't many of them. Adding on the fact that the Emperor would be attending the Lantern Festival and the Empress Dowager was there to hold the line, the Emperor would definitely confront them. This was a hard-won opportunity for them. They couldn't let it go to waste because of this. Nanny Zhu, Lu Qing wept bitterly. She didn't care that the people here would laugh at her and use this matter to mock her in the future. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute favorite concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a bosom friend. Chapter 9:14. Nothing was more important than this opportunity that he had worked so hard to obtain. Granny Zhu was also a decisive person. She had been with the Empress Dowager for so many years. She wouldn't be soft-hearted and forgive them just because they cried and begged. It was rare for her to have a straight face. Qing Zhaoyi, think about it. What did you say? You are all the Emperor's women. What do you mean by covering your face to meet the Emperor during the Lantern Festival? This is a great disrespect to the Emperor and the Empress Dowager. Lu Qing also knew that this was a breach of etiquette, but as long as she thought about how she wouldn't be able to see the Emperor because of the swelling on her face, she would be heartbroken and deeply regretful. It wasn't easy to get this opportunity, but now it was ruined because of Xin Yueji. If she had known earlier, she wouldn't have listened to those people's provocation. When others only dared to talk about Xin Yueji behind her back, she had recklessly jumped out and confronted Xin Yueji. If she had been like them and stood there obediently after Xin Yueji appeared, this wouldn't have happened. Looking at concubine Hui, she seemed to be helping her on the surface, but in fact, everyone present had their own plans. They all hoped that there would be one less person in this Lantern Festival because once there was one less person, they would have a higher chance of winning. Which one of the women present wasn't an outstanding beauty? If the Emperor wanted to find someone among so many beauties, there would definitely be less people than the 3,000 beauties in the harem. They would all be noticed by the Emperor, and then they would have to work harder. One less woman meant one more chance of winning. Granny Zhu. I entered the palace when I was 14 to learn the rules. It has been almost 6 years since I entered the palace. You are also a woman. Perhaps because she really felt wronged, Qing Zhaoyi had been locked in the harem all these years and had never gone out. She could only stay in her palace every day and didn't even want to go out of the imperial garden. Because there were too many beauties and each of them had their own worries, she didn't want to deal with it. No matter how Qing Zhaoyi cried, Granny Zhu's expression was indifferent. Since you have been in the palace for so many years, how come you still don't know the rules? You're so spoiled that you won't be able to tolerate it. Sooner or later, you'll suffer a loss. Today is your punishment. Stop crying here. The Empress Dowager is about to come out. If the Empress Dowager finds out that you're crying like this, it'll be hard to say whether you'll be able to keep your position as the Empress Dowager. Calm. Calm for a long time, Nanny Zhu's words carried a lot of weight. Now, Nanny Zhu's words sounded like a threat, but they were actually the truth. Granny Zhu's words carried a lot of weight. Qing Zhaoyi suddenly looked up and didn't dare to say another word. She didn't dare. In addition, Qing Zhaoyi, and Qing Zhu, Qing Zhu, she, and Qing, she. And Qing, she. Qing, she, and. Now, she could finally see their true colors. When they heard that she would not be able to attend the Lantern Festival, she could even see the joy and pride on their faces. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, get into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Chatting about life and looking for a bosom friend. Chapter 9:15. Although the smile was very low, she still caught it. These were the sisters she was good friends with. In the end, they just watched coldly from the sidelines, not even willing to plead for her. They were afraid that once they pleaded for her, they would be implicated by her and not be able to go to the Lantern Festival. Or, they were afraid that if she went, they would have another competitor. Granny Zhu. Xin Yueji laughed softly, her words were very light, as if she was talking about something insignificant. It's just the annual Lantern Festival, it's not like it's some important occasion. Qing Zhaoyi is right, the daughters of rich families have always worn veils during the lantern show, it's even more mysterious. Qing Zhaoyi has an injury on her face, so it's fine to cover her face with a veil. I believe the Empress Dowager won't say anything. Mobile/M. As soon as Shen Yueji said this, all the concubines present were shocked and whispered to each other, as if they didn't expect Shen Yueji to speak up for Qing Zhaoyi. One had to know that Qing Zhaoyi already hated her to death. If it wasn't for her, she wouldn't have been reprimanded by Granny Zhu, losing face in front of so many concubines, and even losing her spot in the Lantern Festival. Originally, they thought Shen Yueji would watch coldly from the sidelines, but none of them expected that she would take the initiative to plead for Qing Zhaoyi. The quickest update computer, even Nanny Zhu herself, didn't expect this. It was unexpected, but also expected. She looked at Shen Yueji and suddenly smiled. This servant is thinking of the overall situation. Miss Shen is valued by His Majesty and Empress Dowager. The person Qing Zhaoyi offended is also Miss Shen. Since Miss Shen has pleaded for Qing Zhaoyi, this servant naturally can't say anything more. Qing Zhaoyi. Lu Qing was so scared that she knelt on the ground, tears in her eyes. Granny Zhu, did you hear what Miss Shen said? Qing Zhaoyi nodded with a complicated expression. Yes, I heard it. Although it was a bit awkward, Lu Qing still bowed to Shen Yueji. Thank you, Miss Shen, for pleading on my behalf. Nanny Zhu glanced at her and said, in the harem, both the Empress Dowager and the Emperor don't like to see infighting in the harem. On the surface, you are the Emperor's women, but after all, the Emperor hasn't touched you. It's hard to say what will happen in the future. So, don't define yourself too early. One must know how to be content with what they have, especially you guys. Here, you're enjoying glory, splendor, wealth, and endless glory, but on the other side, you want to get the Emperor's favor. Is that even possible? Thank you for your warning, Nanny Zhu. We will remember it. The concubines all agreed with their own thoughts. No one knew what he was thinking. This farce ended in such a quiet manner. It was like a sudden clear sky after a storm. No one had expected this. Chapter 9:16. It was a great honor to ride in the same carriage with the Empress Dowager. It was also an invisible recognition of Shen Yueji's identity. The behavior of the Empress Dowager made all the concubines present jealous and envious again. Why was this woman so lucky? They thought that the Emperor liked her and doted on her, but they didn't expect that even the Empress Dowager liked her so much. Everyone present knew that Pang Yuan was spoiled by the Empress Dowager since she was a child and watched her grow up. Now in front of Shen Yueji, the Empress Dowager didn't even bother to look at her. As women, they really didn't know what was different about Shen Yueji that made the Emperor and the Empress Dowager, who had such high standards, value her so much. Pang Yuan was so angry that her face twisted and she stamped her feet several times. She had been waiting here for a long time. When the Empress Dowager was dressing up, she was not allowed to enter the hall to serve her. People outside all thought that she was accompanying the Empress Dowager. For so many years, the Empress Dowager's attention and love for her had never changed. But she didn't know that she was not let in by the Empress Dowager at all. She sat alone outside the hall and waited for her to change. Now, this old thing humiliated her in front of so many concubines, which made her embarrassed. Pang Yuan gnashed her teeth with hatred. This damn old thing. Who was so nice to her that her eyeballs were covered with dirt? In front of so many people, she naturally didn't dare to be disappointed. She grabbed Xian's hand and said, Empress Dowager, you can't be so partial to Shen Yueji. There should be a first come, first served rule. Wan has been waiting for you inside for so long, and she hasn't complained at all. But Shin Yueji, it's obvious that she just arrived, and everyone is waiting for her. Empress Dowager, it's fine if you don't punish her, but you're still partial to her. First, domain name, please remember, what Nanny Zhu said is right. I asked them to come later. Now the sun is hot. Who among you cares about my words? In my opinion, among you, the only one who obeys my words and rules is G.er. It was a sentence without dignity and seemed to be just a complaint, but it made everyone present tremble with fear. Of course, Xian could see through their thoughts. He came early just to show off in front of her. Others might like this kind of flattery, but Xian didn't like it. On the contrary, she hated such people. On the surface, they were good for you, but in their hearts, they didn't care about you at all. Therefore, the only person she liked was Shin Yueji. In fact, Shin Yueji was more likable. He did not purposely try to please her. He would do it whenever she said so. This was what it meant to be truly obedient. He had truly taken her words to heart and listened to them. New by Chinese website. Shin Yueji walked in front of her and followed her into the carriage. Pang Yuan did not want to be outdone. Even if the Empress Dowager did not let her in, she still forced her way in. The carriage was not big, and they went out in plain clothes. It was a very simple and ordinary carriage. When Pang Yuan got in, Nanny Zhu, who was behind her, couldn't get in. Nanny Zhu, I can ride with double happiness. The Empress Dowager needs you to take care of her. As she spoke, Shin Yueji was about to get off. Pang Yuan still added fuel to the fire and said sarcastically, you should have gotten off long ago. Don't you think about your identity? How dare you ride with the Empress Dowager? Xian had tolerated her for a long time. This time, she saw that she did not realize her mistake at all and was still complacent. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about super cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble, she would like to follow Yodu Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 9:17. Her face was gloomy. Pang Yuan, you're really looking down on me now. This was the first time Pang Yuan had ever called her by her full name. Even the last time she gave her a fox fur mink, she fainted from anger. Other than slapping herself, she had never called her by her full name before. Empress Dowager, please calm down. This lantern festival is to relax. Don't let some small things ruin your mood. Empress Dowager, Pang Yuan was also scared. Nanny Zhu has been with Empress Dowager for so many years. No matter where Empress Dowager goes, she takes Nanny Zhu with her. Since Imperial Consort Pang and I are in a stalemate, she must be unwilling to let me ride with Empress Dowager. Shin Yueji got up, why don't I go with Imperial Consort Pang? Empress Dowager and Nanny Zhu can ride together, and Imperial Consort Pang and I will ride with our own maids. This was the only way. Nanny Zhu nodded in agreement. Shin Yueji could see everything in a short time. She was really smart. Compared with Pang Yuan was not at the same level as her. She could only rely on the Empress Dowager's favor to be lawless. She didn't know that the more she did this, the more the Empress Dowager's patience with her was worn out. Maybe in the end, Empress Dowager's patience with her would run out. Not only the Emperor, but also her only backer, Empress Dowager, would no longer support her. How could she have a foothold in this harem? Thinking of this, Nanny Zhu shook her head and sighed. Imperial Consort Pang gave her the feeling that she didn't know how to be blessed. With such a good identity and such a good background, if it were any other woman in the North Underworld, which one of them wouldn't, she just had to be the one who didn't know how to grasp the opportunity and insisted on tormenting herself like this. Wasn't she courting death by doing this? What was she doing? Probably because she took the initiative to say that she was willing to get off the carriage, Pang Yuan saw that she didn't pester Empress Dowager anymore. After seeing Shen Yueji get off the carriage, she also followed. Seeing Shen Yueji walking forward, she quickly caught up and called her, Shen Yueji. Shen Yueji heard it but didn't stop. Seeing this, Pang Yuan couldn't help getting angry again. She quickly stepped forward and blocked her way. Shen Yueji, are you deaf? Didn't you hear me calling you? Shen Yueji stopped and looked at her. What's the matter? What is it? What do you think it is? Pang Yuan gritted her teeth and glared at her. I'm warning you, the Empress Dowager may not be able to see through your thoughts and ideas, and Brother Emperor has been bewitched by you, but I can see it clearly. I'm telling you, as long as I'm here, you can forget about winning over the Empress Dowager. The Empress Dowager only treats you well because of Brother Emperor. It's because Brother Emperor likes you that the Empress Dowager thinks highly of you. Do you believe that if there comes a day when Brother Emperor gets tired of you, the Empress Dowager will definitely not spare you a second glance? Sometimes, Shen Yueji felt that when she was brainless, she was like a child who only knew how to be unreasonable and find trouble with others. But now, in Shen Yueji's understanding, besides being ruthless and cruel, she really had no brain. How could such a brainless woman live in the harem until now and have such a high position? Read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, The Prince Regent, Messing with the Body Claw Book House, for free. Chapter 9:18. Wasn't it because she had a father who held great power in the imperial court? If Imperial Consort Pang stopped me just to say these words to me, then since I'm done, can Imperial Consort Pang step aside and let me go? Shen Yueji, aren't you afraid at all? Shen Yueji was amused. Oh. What should I be afraid of? Pang Yuan smiled coldly. You're afraid of the one from Feng Nation. Ha! As for Pang Yuan, this time, she was not like before, unable to keep her words to herself, wishing that she could say all the vicious words she had. This time, she smiled complacently, as if everything was under her control. Shen Yueji, believe me. You'll definitely regret it. Imperial Consort Pang, let me remind you. Shen Yueji took a step forward and smiled. You don't even know that you're being schemed against, and you still want to do anything to me. Do you know that when Shangwan Mei joined forces with you, she came to me on the same day and told me all the tricks you had plotted against me? Do you think she really wanted to help you? Calm. She didn't understand why she mentioned Shangwan Mei, but she heard from her that Shangwan Mei had betrayed her. Pang Yuan's expression changed completely. It was frightening. What did you say? Did Shangwan Mei tell you about Ben Gong? Coincidentally, when Shangwan Mei and Imperial Consort Pang joined hands to deal with me, she came again. The meaning of her words was very clear. She revealed that she wanted to cooperate with me to get rid of Imperial Consort Pang. Speaking of this, she laughed. Speaking of which, Imperial Consort Pang, don't you think that the person you should be wary of is Consort Mei, not me? With such a disloyal ally, no matter who wins or who dies, she'll be the one to reap the benefits, isn't it? What did you say? Shangwan Mei, that bitch, how dare she? She actually dared to betray her. Pang Yuan could not be bothered to care about her this time. If they were not outside, in front of so many people and the Empress Dowager was present, she would have rushed back and cut that bitch Shangwan Mei into 1,000 pieces. She actually thought that this woman was smart and knew how to read the big picture. She knew who to rely on and who to deal with. She even listened to her and gave her plenty of advice. Huaxin Originals, domain names, please remember it looked like he had trusted her too much and was actually deceived by her. Looking at her twisted face, Shen Yueji smiled slightly and walked past her. As she walked, she said, Imperial concubine May has told me more than once that she wants to cooperate with me. In her heart, Imperial concubine Pang was cruel and merciless, killing people like flies. She told me that everyone in the harem wanted to kill you. However, due to the fact that your family's background is too powerful, most of them don't dare to speak out against you, Imperial consort Pang. If they had a chance, who wouldn't want to kill Imperial consort Pang and get rid of you? What Imperial concubine May said is reasonable. However, when I think about it, I don't know her. She said that she felt like old friends at first sight. I wonder what she said to Imperial consort Pang. Although Imperial consort Pang doesn't like me, at least I can't learn from Imperial consort Pang and play tricks behind her back, right? I've always liked to be straightforward. While Imperial consort Pang hasn't made me remember her now, if that day really comes, Shin Yueji's voice paused for a moment. Pang Yuan's scalp went numb for no reason. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, getting into trouble, chat about life and find a bosom friend. Chapter 9:19. Shin Yueji sneered. She spat out a few words and left. Pang Yuan was still in the same position as when Shin Yueji left. She stood there stiffly, as if she had been frozen in place. Because she said first published on the Chinese website. In fact, what Mei Fei Nyang said is not without reason. All of you think that the Emperor's favor is just a flash in the pan. Everyone is waiting to see the excitement in me, waiting for the day when I am abandoned by the Emperor. There is one sentence that can be considered as a kind reminder from concubine Mei. Since the Emperor loves me and loves me, why don't I take this opportunity to get rid of all those who hate me and want to harm me? In this way, when the Emperor no longer loves me, concubine Mei, you will no longer be a threat to me, right? Shin Yueji didn't find Shuangxi in the carriage. She frowned and didn't think much about it. It was rare for Shuangxi to leave the palace this time, especially since she loved freedom. She might have gone somewhere to play. Actually, they had just left the palace and hadn't arrived at the Lantern Festival yet. Even the streets of the capital were in front of them. Sitting in the carriage was heading east, but Shuangxi still didn't come. In addition, there was a strange incense in the carriage, which made Shin Yueji feel that something was wrong. Today was the Lantern Festival. Behind her was the Empress Dowager's carriage. As Mo Wushang couldn't ride with her, he shouldn't have left yet. Her head suddenly became dizzy. Shin Yueji shook her head. That feeling became more and more intense. Gradually, even she could not control herself. Her heart finally became vigilant. Suddenly, she remembered what Pang Yuan had said to her just now. Was she unknowingly being schemed against by her again? Mao Ran thought of what she said. Aren't you worried about the person in Phone Country? Phone Country. The moment she fell, the only thought in her mind was which person from the Phone Nation was it? Could it be? It was the fastest update on the NightNet. On the computer, when she woke up, she was in a completely unfamiliar environment. The room was lit with candles and the scarlet curtains were put down. She could only see the faint candlelight outside the curtains. It was already dark. Where was she? The environment in front of her was very unfamiliar to her. She only knew that she was in a room, and it was quiet and there was no one around. He still felt a little dizzy. Shin Yueji rubbed the space between her eyebrows and lifted the curtains to get out of bed. The room wasn't very big, but it was decorated elegantly without being overly luxurious. It exuded a strong scent of ink. Who was the one who kidnapped her? During this period of time when she was unconscious, she was safe and sound. Nothing happened to her. The place where she was lying was also the kind of quilt that was carefully folded. There was not the slightest discomfort. It was enough to show that the other party did not have the intention to harm her. Since they didn't want to harm her, why did they take the risk to kidnap her? Are you awake? Wen Ye's gentle voice sounded from behind her. It was so familiar that it felt like a lifetime ago, but Shin Yueji still recognized it immediately. She turned her head abruptly. When she saw Feng Zhiqing's gentle and handsome face, which was like a celestial being's, she was stunned on the spot. There was another door in the room, and he walked out from that door. He was dressed in white, just like when she first met him. He was so beautiful that it made people feel as if he had walked out from a flower. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble, she followed Yue Literature on WeChat. Talking about life and looking for bosom friends. I won't let him hurt you anymore. I won't do it again. Let's go to a place where they can't find us. Just the two of us. Just the two of us. No one will separate us anymore, okay? Are you him? The man who gave her his promise, the man who had never betrayed her. Shin Yueji felt complicated. She did not know how to face the man in front of her, especially when she knew that his feelings for her had never betrayed her. She could not think of a way to ask him how he knew that she was Gu Yuqin, and how he came to the North Underworld to look for her when he was seriously injured. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people, she could not think of a way to ask him how he knew that she was Gu Yuqin, and how he came to the North Underworld to look for her when he was seriously injured. Talk about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 9:21. She didn't know how to reject him, but she couldn't bear to push him away. She no longer had feelings for him, but Shin Yueji couldn't bear to let him go. She had never forgotten about their past. She had never forgotten about it. I'm sorry for hiding it from you for so long. If I had told you this earlier, you wouldn't have suffered so much. The man stroked her hair gently. Chin, I'm sorry. Can you give me another chance to make it up to me? We have completely separated. From now on, he won't be me, and I won't be him. We will never be each other again. What do you mean by that? What did he mean by completely separated from him? She thought about what Kong Yin had said to her. They shared the same body, and their lifespans were very short. One of them had a soul, and the lifespan. She raised her head abruptly. Feng Zhiqing, what did you do to yourself? The man caressed her face gently. Qin, will you go with me? I'll take you to wherever you want to go, and never come back. Shin Yueji shook her head and pushed him away. No, I won't go with you. No matter who you are, I won't go with you. I'm Mo Wushang's woman now. I've fallen in love with him. Between you and me, there's no longer any possibility of that happening. Mobile/M. She didn't want to leave a way out for herself, and she didn't want to leave any hope for the man in front of her. Since they had missed each other, then let them miss each other forever. Between them, there would never be a possibility. The man's originally bright eyes suddenly dimmed. His eyes turned scarlet, and even the hint of a smile at the corner of his lips slowly disappeared. He just looked at her like that, suddenly opened his mouth, and in front of her, he spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood was dark red, and it was different from normal blood. Shin Yueji looked at his body in shock. She held on to the coffee table beside her in time, and barely managed to not fall. But his swaying body, pale and weak face, and the dark red blood at the corner of his mouth, looked so glaring and heart-wrenching. Qin, the man suddenly smiled. His words were desolate, helpless, and full of despair. Is it really impossible? Ever since he found out her identity, he had abandoned everything to find Kong Yin and the Xianming sect. This was the first time he had so desperately hoped that his soul could be completely separated from that man. Even if he had to pay any price, as long as he could be himself again, return to her side, be able to tell her that he had returned, that his feelings for her had never changed, and that he had never betrayed his feelings for her. As long as all of this. As long as he could be with her, even if he had to die, he would be willing. On the computer, he did not know what kind of terrible price he had to pay. I'm sorry, Feng Juqing. I truly no longer have any feelings for you. Shen Yueji turned around and closed her eyes. The only thing I have is the reluctance to part with you. But now, I know what I want and who is in my heart. Go. Pfft. He spat out another mouthful of blood in front of her. This time, the man could no longer stand, and his body fell down. Shen Yueji quickly went forward to support him, and the man fell steadily into the woman's arms. His body was very light, as if he was weightless. Only now did Shen Yueji realize how skinny he really was. In just a few days, he had become so thin. If she wanted to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble, she would like to follow Yue Literature on WeChat. Talk about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 922. These days, on the way to the North Kingdom, I've been so happy and looking forward to it. Because I know that I will be able to see you soon. Very soon, I will be able to truly touch you. That kind of feeling is not like a dream. It is illusory and illusory. Every time it happens, I will wake up from a dream. If he could, he wanted to be immersed in the dream forever and never wake up again. He looked at the completely unfamiliar yet familiar face in front of him and suddenly smiled. Qin, you don't have to apologize to me. I'm the one who let you down. I destroyed you with my own hands. You don't know how happy I am that you're willing to forgive me. Go back. The people of Feng Country need you. In the future, there will be many beautiful women in your harem. You be the Emperor of Feng Country, and I'll be the Empress of North Kingdom. From now on, the country will be peaceful and there will be no more wars between the two countries. Isn't that what you want to see? The man's eyes turned red. Qin, this isn't what I want to see. This is what he wants to see. This time, he didn't think about going back. He closed his eyes. Go. Those people must have gone crazy looking for you. This is an inn for the Lantern Festival. It's not very hidden. You'll see them when you go out. Shen Yueji was a little worried about him, but she didn't want to stay. Because staying was equivalent to giving him hope. Since she had decided to be with Mo Wushang, there was no need to be entangled with him. Because that would be unfair to Mo Wushang. Feng Juqing's arrival surprised her, but what he said made her feel gratified. But other than that, she couldn't do anything, let alone give him a promise. I'm sorry. She slowly let go of him and stood up. When she walked to the door, she didn't know how much effort it took for her not to turn back to look at him. Actually, she didn't have much to say to him. If it was anyone else, they would definitely have countless things to say to him after finding out that he had come looking for her. But the more she said to him, the more troubles they would have in their hearts. Since they were going to break up, why not be more decisive? First, Domain, please remember, just like that. Feng Juqing watched her leave without any hesitation at all. Blood dripped from the bottom of his scarlet eyes, and he suddenly laughed. In fact, he already had this thought before he came, but he didn't dare to believe it. He repeatedly told himself that his Qin loved him so much that she wouldn't fall in love with another man. She knew his difficulties, and knew that he had never betrayed her. However, he had overestimated himself in the end. Resurrection Gu, he clutched his chest. His and Feng Juqing's souls had split into two. With the help of the Xianming cult's resurrection parasite, he had 3 months of lifespan. After 3 months, he would vanish into thin air. To him, 3 months was more than enough. He had never experienced true freedom of his own. In the end, one of them would die. Because he knew that she already had someone in her heart, he chose to take the resurrection goo without hesitation. Perhaps in his heart, he already knew that she would not be the same as before, and they would never be the same again. Xian, in the last 3 months, I still couldn't spend time with you day and night. There was reluctance in his heart, but there was nothing Feng Zhiqing could do other than being unwilling. Because he didn't want to hurt her. Even if he didn't have much time left, at least he could watch her from afar, watch her be happy. He didn't want much. If he wanted to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, getting into trouble, follow Yudu Literature on WeChat. Talk about life and find a bosom friend. Chapter 923. Coming out of the inn. Shen Yueji saw the Lantern Festival, which was tightly surrounded. It was originally a lively and bustling scene, but now everyone was in a state of panic. Everywhere was heavily guarded. Pang Yuan stayed by Xian's side and said something. Xian's face was also gloomy. She didn't know if it was a coincidence or if Pang Yuan had been paying attention to the movements on this side. When she saw her coming out, she quickly pointed at her. Empress Dowager, look, I was right. She must be fooling around with some man. She is such a smart person. How could she be kidnapped and taken away? He's purposely making us worry for nothing. It was so hateful that they had a whole day to enjoy the lanterns, but it was ruined by Shen Yueji. Not only were they in a bad mood, but also the surrounded daughters of aristocratic families and common people were forced to gather together because of her sudden disappearance, to search and ask questions one by one. Shuangshi walked to her with a worried face. Seeing that she was safe and sound, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Miss, you are finally back. I have been looking for you for a whole day, but I couldn't find you. Pang Yuan followed her, and her young miss was unfamiliar with the northern underworld, so they suddenly couldn't find her. Pang Yuan's maiden family had such a powerful backing, and she was very worried that Pang Yuan and her family had secretly kidnapped her young miss. Fortunately, her miss came back safe and sound. Her worried heart was relieved. No matter where her miss went, as long as her miss could come back safely, this was what she hoped. Shen Yueji glanced at her and felt the eyes of people around her looking at and talking about her. She didn't explain, but just asked, where is the emperor? The emperor, the son-in-law, Shuangshi was about to speak. Pang Yuan walked towards her angrily, pointed at her, and said with a domineering posture, Pang Yuan, what do you mean? You pretended to disappear mysteriously for a whole day, and made us all worry about you for so long in vain. Empress Dowager and my sisters, it was not easy for them to go out of the palace, but because of you, their mood was ruined. You said, you can go to see your old lover and say something. We are not unreasonable people, but don't make us all look for you. Old lover. Shen Yueji smiled coldly and looked at her. Her calm face did not change at all. Only her eyes seemed to be frozen. She ignored the people present and looked directly at Pang Yuan. Isn't Imperial Consort Pang always by the Empress Dowager's side? How did you know I went to see my old lover? You really went to see your old lover? Pang Yuan's face showed a proud expression. She looked at Xian behind her in surprise. Empress Dowager, did you hear that? This slut admitted it herself. She said that she went to see her old lover. This shameless slut had a foot in both boats. Brother Emperor likes her so much, yet she's still thinking about another man. She's been staying in the inn all day and hasn't come out. She must be entangled with that wild man. Empress Dowager, enough. On the computer, as the saying goes, one should not wash one's dirty linen in public. Now, Peng Yuan had publicly spoken ill of Shin Yueji in front of so many outsiders, regardless of whether she had her own difficulties or was really kidnapped. But she disappeared for a day, and they searched for a day. No matter what the reason was, Cin's face was not very good. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about super cute pet concubine, regent, get into trouble, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find confidence. Chapter 924. We'll discuss this matter when we return to the palace. Nanny Zhu, send someone to inform His Majesty that the person he's looking for has returned. Let him return to the palace. Yes, Nanny Zhu answered carefully. She glanced at Shin Yueji and shook her head. It was supposed to be a good time to have fun and relax during the Lantern Festival. However, such a thing happened. Every day that Shin Yueji did not appear, Mo Wuxiang would send people to search for her. The emperor was angry, so how could they continue to have fun here? Naturally, he was busy helping to find the person. In addition, Peng Yuan's words fanned the flames. From the beginning to the end, Shin Yueji did not explain anything. Even she knew that at this moment, she should explain. Sitting in the carriage, Shuangxi looked at her silent appearance with distress and couldn't help feeling indignant for her. Miss, Empress Dowager and Nanny Zhu are not unreasonable people. Especially when Nanny Zhu looked at you just now, she was full of distress. Miss, why don't you explain to Empress Dowager? If you explain to Empress Dowager will definitely believe you. Peng Yuan is deliberately adding oil to the fire, fanning the flames. The more you don't explain, the more pleased she is, and the more those people will believe her. In any case, she didn't believe that her young miss was really like what she said. In this world, it was impossible to find two people who were more loving than her miss and son-in-law. Moreover, son-in-law was so outstanding and was also the emperor of a country. Not to mention his good looks, just based on his status alone, miss was not a fool. In this world, which man could compare to son-in-law? The only thing she couldn't figure out was why the young lady didn't explain. If she explained, Shin Yueji shook her head and withdrew her gaze. It seemed that her drifting thoughts had not returned. The fastest network update on the computer, there's nothing to explain. Why not? Shuangxi looked at her. Miss, what happened? Who was the one who kidnapped you for the whole day? Did the criminals do anything to you? There's more. Originals, domain names, please remember the young miss came out of the inn. Looking at Peng Yuan's posture, it was clear that she wanted to rush into the inn with her men to capture them. There really is a man in the inn. My current explanation is disadvantageous to me. No matter how I explain, I can't shake off the fact that there is a man in the inn. He glanced at Shuangxi in front of him. The Empress Dowager ordered people to return to the palace as soon as possible for the sake of my reputation. If she did not order everyone to return to the palace now, I'm afraid that with Peng Yuan's temperament, she would have already brought people into search. Shuangxi looked at her in shock, almost unable to believe it. Miss, what did you say? There really was a man in the inn, you. I slept on the bed for a whole day, and when I woke up, I saw him. Shin Yueji closed her eyes slightly. It was hard to tell what she was feeling in her voice. She only said, double happiness, he is here. Shuangxi wasn't an idiot when it came to the he she mentioned. He only needed to comprehend a little to know who she was referring to. Miss, isn't His Majesty seriously injured? Moreover, what the general meant was that the emperor seemed to be in a coma. Since he was in a coma, why would the emperor travel thousands of miles to the northern underworld to find the young miss? Or to live? Were these all pretenses? Shin Yueji shook her head. I don't know what exactly happened. He only said that from now on, he and he are completely two different people. They have separated. Shuangxi, he wants to take me away. If you want to chat with more like-minded people about exploding cute pet concubine, Prince Regent, getting into trouble, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Chat about life, find a bosom friend. Chapter 925. Her lips curled into a self-deprecating smile. Did you know? He actually said that he would take me away. He said that he would take me to a place that none of you can find. From now on, there will only be me and him. No one will disturb us. In the past, if he could say these words to her, she didn't know how much she looked forward to it and how happy she would be. But now, she actually felt extremely ironic. That's right, it was really ironic. There had never been a day when the words and promises she had been looking forward to the most were no longer promises. They were no longer promises, no longer a promise from a man to her. They were about to come true, but she actually felt that it was ironic. Not only did she not look forward to it, but she even felt that it was full of self-deprecation. Miss, for some reason, seeing her like this, Shuangxi suddenly felt very distressed. It was as if she didn't know what to say other than to hug her. Miss, do you feel very sad now? It would be a lie to say that she didn't feel sad. She had never let go of that unwillingness. After all, he was the man she had loved for so many years. She would rather that Feng Jiuqing really betrayed and sold her. She would rather that he really wanted to kill her. She would rather that there were no two souls living in his body. But there were too many things that she would rather. She would always be defeated by reality. Just like her and Feng Jiuqing. Shuangxi hugged her dearly and let her head rest on her shoulder. Miss, no matter what you choose, I will always be on your side, even if she chose the emperor in the end, she might feel that it was a pity for her relationship with the son-in-law. However, it was her own choice to follow the young lady. So, Shin Yueji looked at her with amusement. Do you think that I don't have feelings for Mo Wushang? Miss, Shuangxi's face suddenly changed in fear. She knelt on the ground. Miss, Shin Yueji sighed. You know my character. If there's anything, just say it. There's no need to kneel. Then, Miss, do you want to hear the truth from me, or do you want to hear the lie? Of course the truth. Shin Yueji motioned for her to get up. Although I haven't spent much time with you, only you treat me sincerely. I will listen to what you say. I also want to know what you think of me. From the beginning, Miss was hostile to the Prince Regent, and I felt that Miss didn't like the Prince Regent. But at the beginning, I didn't know that Miss was no longer alive, but you. So, the doubts in my heart were suppressed. Then, Miss, you took the initiative to enter the palace. You resisted entering the palace before because the general only had one woman in his life and had never taken a concubine. So, Miss, you have been influenced by the general's mansion since you were a child, and the general and madam also hoped that the man you marry in the future must treat you wholeheartedly and must not have more than one wife and 4 concubines, but Miss suddenly chose to enter the palace and compete with so many women for the emperor. Speaking of this, Shuangxi paused. I often see Miss absent-minded for a long time because of the emperor. This is because I have been by Miss's side for so long. Even when Miss liked the Prince Regent so much, I didn't see Miss so devoted to a man. Even your emotions were affected. Listening to her, Shin Yueji roughly understood a little. Do you think in your heart that the person I like is Feng Jiuqing? If you want to chat with more like-minded people about explosively cute pet concubine, the Prince Regent, gets into trouble, follow You Read Literature on WeChat. Chat about life and find bosom friends. Chapter 926. She used to have such thoughts, especially after knowing her identity. She and Feng Jiuqing had been husband and wife for many years. How could she not have feelings for him? Moreover, when Miss was still Gu Yuqin, everyone in the capital of Feng country knew that the daughter of the Shen family was infatuated with the regent, but the regent fell in love with the emperor's woman. There was no doubt that Gu Yuqin hated Mo Wushang. Some things have passed. To be honest, I was really surprised to see Feng Jiuqing in the North Underworld today. I didn't even have any expectations when he said that he would take me away. Double happiness, I can't betray Mo Wushang, not in this life. I promised him that I wouldn't leave unless the day comes when he despises me and doesn't want me anymore. I won't give you a chance to leave. The man's hoarse and deep voice came from outside. The curtain was lifted from the outside. Shen Yueji saw the man's gloomy face coming in from outside. Double happiness got up and got off the carriage. Before leaving, he said, "Young master, you heard what Miss said just now, right? You have to believe Mississippi. The people in the North Underworld are waiting to see what will happen to Mississippi. Young master, you are the only one who can protect Mississippi. If you listen to outsiders and don't believe in Miss." Double happiness choked and didn't continue. He lifted the curtain and went out. The man's black eyes locked on her for a moment. Shen Yueji had mixed feelings. She didn't want to meet his eyes. She looked away and said, "I'm sorry to make you anxious." The man was silent and sat down next to her. "He's here." Shen Yueji knew who he was asking about without saying the name. She nodded and said, "Yes." The spy in Feng country sent a secret message. Feng Jiuqing just woke up today. He is a mortal, not a god. It's impossible for him to come to the North Underworld from the Feng country, which is thousands of miles away, in one day. Are you hiding something from me?" The man never talked to her in this tone, nor would he take the initiative to ask her anything. He had always respected her. But this time, before she could answer, her hand was held by the man. She felt the warmth from the man's palm. Shen Yueji looked up at him. "I don't want anything from you. I won't blame you for hiding things from me. As long as you can fulfill your promise and stay by my side forever, I won't let anyone bully you. In this world, even if the world betrays you, I will never betray you." In the carriage, Empress Dowager, why haven't you made your stance clear? That slut has even snuck into the Dark North Kingdom. Not only under Brother Emperor's eyes, but also under Empress Dowager's eyes. She's so lawless and condescending. She has no respect for Empress Dowager's authority and the reputation of the Dark North royal family. Empress Dowager, you're still defending such a slut. Although Pang Yuan was extreme in some things, she was not a fool. She originally planned to order people to rush in to find, but the Empress Dowager's tone was so decisive and so angry. She was not a blind person who didn't know who was in charge of the North Sea. In addition, her brother, the Emperor, had personally come to the Lantern Festival. If she still didn't know what was good for her and went against the Empress Dowager, her brother, the Emperor, would definitely not like her. After all, the Empress Dowager was his mother. She understood this principle. She read the latest chapter of Exploding Cute Pet Concubine, The Regent, Messing with Claw Bookhouse, for free. Chapter 927. But, so what if they protected Shen Yueji? It was a fact that Shen Yueji had an affair with another man. She stayed in the inn with another man for an entire day and didn't come out. Did she know what they were doing inside? The people outside were searching everywhere. She didn't believe that she didn't hear anything from inside. She knew that everyone was worried about her. Her brother, the Emperor, would send people to look for her, but she still acted so brazenly. Wasn't this showing that she didn't respect her brother and the Empress Dowager? Empress Dowager, Peng Yuan shook her arm. Wan knows that you're siding with that bitch, but Empress Dowager, things have already reached this point. Do you still want to cover for her? That bitch is clearly eating what's in the pot, yet she's still thinking about what's in the bowl. She didn't even think about it. Brother Emperor treated her so well, yet she still betrayed him. Imperial Consort Pang, you haven't even seen who was in the inn, yet you're already so sure that Miss Shin had an affair with another man. Aren't you being too hostile towards Miss Shin? Granny Zhu, who was standing by the side, couldn't bear to listen any longer and reminded her. However, as soon as she said that, Peng Yuan glared at her. Granny Zhu, what do you mean? Could it be that you think that this consort would deliberately frame her? No matter how capable I am, I wouldn't frame her and her old lover, right? Empress Dowager, she's the Empress Dowager of the Feng country's emperor. But according to what I know, the Feng country's emperor is still unconscious due to his injuries, and the Feng country and the Dark North Kingdom are. That's all a cover. Before she could finish, Peng Yuan interrupted her angrily. Granny Zhu, what do you mean? Do you think that I'm purposely causing trouble for Shin Yueji? That's not it. Imperial Consort, please don't be angry. I'm just suspecting. Imperial Consort, you don't even know the Feng country's emperor. Why do you insist that the man in the inn is the Feng country's emperor? Peng Yuan's face paled. Don't worry about it. I just know that the man in the inn is Shin Yueji's old lover, the Feng country's emperor. The Feng country's emperor isn't someone who can't see the big picture. He came all the way from the Feng country to the Dark North Kingdom, so why would he hide in the inn like a normal person? Isn't this condescending to his status as the emperor of a country? Senior servant Zhu narrowed her eyes. It was the emperor who took his woman away. Since that's the case, he can openly choose to take her back. Nanny Zhu. Peng Yuan was completely enraged by Ji Yunshu's repeated insults. She glared fiercely at Ji Yunshu. Everything I've done is for Brother Huangdi's good. That slut has already done so much, yet you're still siding with her and defending her. What kind of magic potion did she feed you to make you side with her so much? Chapter 928. Empress. Empress Dowager, please calm down. I didn't mean that. I'm just too angry. When I think that my brother loved that bitch so much, and that bitch dared to betray my brother, with another man. Wan got angry. I couldn't restrain my anger. I wanted to rush up and tear that woman's face. How could she betray Brother Emperor? Peng Yuan cried and grabbed Cian's clothes. Empress Dowager, you have to believe Wan really didn't mean that. Wan has lived by your side for so long. The royal family has long been my home. How could Wan abandon the royal family's face for my own selfish desires? Now, just hearing her figure, Cian's heart was full of hatred. It could be imagined that he hated her to the extreme. She closed her eyes and waved her hands. I'm tired. Ever since the late emperor passed away, I've been in charge of so many things, big and small in the imperial court, as well as helping Shang grow up. In the past, I hoped that you could become my daughter-in-law, but now, I don't want that at all. Wan, you are not only jealous, but also vicious. If Shang really likes you, I don't know how many innocent people will die because of your vicious heart. Not only did she protect Shin Yueji, but at the same time, she also put herself in such a low position. This time, Peng Yuan no longer had tears on her face. She stood up and looked at her. Empress Dowager, what do you mean? Imperial concubine Pang, there is your royal carriage in front. You'd better get in your carriage. Empress Dowager, what do you mean? Peng Yuan insisted on an explanation. How could she leave? She almost went forward to grab Xian's collar. Nanny Zhu was the first to react and stood in front of her. The vicious Pang Yuan didn't care about her. She directly slapped her. "You bitch, get out of my way." Slap! A slap landed on Xian's face, bringing with it a burning pain. Xian covered her slapped face with a calm face. She was not angry or surprised at all, as if she had already expected that Pang Yuan would slap her. After all, the Empress Dowager was right. She was spoiled and vicious. She only thought about herself and her own interests. Who else would she care about? However, Xian didn't expect it at all. He couldn't believe that Nanny Zhu was beaten like this. Her eyes suddenly narrowed, as if she had gathered all the ice blades in the world in a short period of time. To be honest, Pang Yuan was a little scared. Because it was the first time in her life that she saw the Empress Dowager like this. In her impression, the Empress Dowager was very kind and spoiled to her. She was not as scary as she was now. It was so scary, she stumbled backward. Her words were trembling, and she couldn't speak clearly. Xian stood up from his seat, raised his hand, and slapped her hard. Pang Yuan covered her face, not daring to speak. She didn't even dare to look at Xian's livid face. Xian was also extremely angry. Her face was full of gloom. She glared at her fiercely. "Nanny Zhu has been with me since I was a child and grew up with me. She has suffered countless grievances and beatings for me. If it weren't for her, how could I live until now and sit in the position of the Empress Dowager of the Northernmost Kingdom?" Read the latest chapter of Super Cute Pet Concubine, The Regent Gets into Trouble with Claw Book House for free. Chapter 929. I treat her as my own sister. Pang Yuan, in this harem, who doesn't know that Zhu Rong's appearance is equivalent to my presence? How dare you hit her? How dare you? Do you know that when you hit her, you are hitting me? Pang Yuan was really panicking this time. She was so scared that she didn't dare to look at Xian, Empress. Empress Dowager. Wan didn't mean it. Wan really didn't mean it. Just now, it was Nanny Zhu. Yes, it was Nanny Zhu who stood in front of you. I was too careless and accidentally hit her. Empress Dowager, you have to believe Wan really didn't mean it. Empress Dowager, you have to believe Wan really didn't mean it. Wan really didn't mean it. Guards! She shouted angrily. The carriage immediately stopped and two black-clothed secret guards came in. They glanced at Xian's unkind face and pulled Pang Yuan away without saying anything. No matter how Pang Yuan yelled, whether she was angry or yelling, she was like a shrew. This time, Xian didn't even look at her. When Pang Yuan was pulled away, she looked at Nanny Zhu with distress. Especially her face, which was swollen. Nanny Zhu was also old and couldn't bear being hit like this. Pang Yuan's slap was extremely heavy. Nanny Zhu, I value her mother's kindness to me too much. That's why I protect her, love her, and indulge her. Now she is so lawless that she even dares to hit you. She thought of the malicious words she said to Nanny Zhu just now. She even called her a lowly servant. In her heart, although she was the Empress Dowager, she had never regarded her as a servant. She really regarded her as her own sister. She shed tears. Little do you know, in this world, only you treat me the best, but I still. It won't happen again. I won't let anyone bully you again. What Pang Yuan? Her mother did save her life. All these years, she had already repaid all kinds of kindness to Pang Yuan. She had also repaid her mother's life. She was already so old. If something bad happened to Nanny Zhu, she really didn't know how she would survive. She knew which was more important, and she knew who was more important to her now. Empress Dowager, this servant's life is cheap. You can hit me and scold me. This servant is fine as long as Empress Dowager doesn't get angry. Nanny Zhu held her hand and sighed. It had not been easy for them all these years. If Xian treated her as an elder sister, then she treated her as a younger sister. All these years, he had been by her side, taking care of her, and serving her daily needs. He had never married anyone in his entire life. During that period of time, she had tried to arrange a marriage for her. When she was young, there were many talented young men who wanted to marry her.